Hey guys, George Mesa, Third Eye Edify podcast. And today I have a short that answered a question that I had asked in a previous short, number 32. I'm just going to flash the thumbnail in case that gives you a quick reminder of what it was. Will they even notice? In response to a few news articles that happened around that time a few months ago, and the Gulf of Mexico becoming the Gulf of America, depending, of course, on where you look, which is kind of really just does say a lot, doesn't it, about what you use as search engines, how the internet is used by you will actually give you very varying results, as I think a lot of people that watch this show already know. As my previous guest of many times and good friend, good old Ronin Bird Dog, a knowledgeable and caring person who is doing his best to make sure people know how to starve the beast, says, starve the beast, don't use Google, start there. He gave a great option, actually, as far as web browsing goes, called pre-search. And that's a great way to at least do your best to stay off of other people's radars. And yeah, you're still using an Apple phone to do it, so it's obviously not perfect, but it's a good start. A lot of people were trusting things like DuckDuckGo, and maybe they were good a few years ago, but I don't think that, unfortunately, they're not going to have the same clout as they used to, as I may have mentioned in the previous episode. So anyway, what question was answered? Will they even notice? And who answered the call? Internet sleuths, who are constantly on the lookout, as you may already know. There's a lot of good people doing good work, and the internet allows us to do this work. The internet, and of course, things like the Wayback Machine, archive.org, they are allowing you to make sure that websites aren't constantly changing the goalposts and even altering initial titles to certain articles, images that go with the articles. This happens way too often. And as far as the past 5 years goes, hint, hint, coronavirus, hint, hint, COVID, we saw it way too often. And people were all over it, which I absolutely love to see. So people do notice. And as I made a, very obvious reference here, this is an image from the Animal Farm movie. You can just as easily read the book, of course. It's not a very long story. Here, as you can see, animals ready to revolt against their human master, but then the pigs take over. And they write their laws on the wall. And once the pigs start to take advantage, they change a few of the laws. They add different ones, cross out some other ones. Nobody noticed, because people weren't as astute in knowing what was originally there. Their assumption is that you have no idea what is written in the Declaration of Independence, and they're right. I'm no scholar as far as this goes. I'm not. But as far as the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence, I will read from this in a moment to show you exactly how this episode came to be. So, very recently, internet sleuths, as it's being labeled, noticed that something was missing from the US government's own website. The written laws on the wall from the pigs, in other words. And Article 1 of the Constitution was missing parts of Section 8. It was missing Section 9 in its entirety, and it was missing Section 10 in its entirety. This was chalked up to a coding error. Now, I'm sure people out there do know coding, how to keep a website going if you are actually writing it based on code and not just making it with another program like Canva or whatever the other ones are that are very popular right now. You can still make your website with the code. And I have a feeling It's a difficult mistake to make, to lose a piece of a section and then two other complete sections of Article 1 of the Constitution. And again, I'll read what I think might have been the things that mattered most from those being missing. And who stepped in very quickly to let us know whether or not it was real and or anything to even talk about? Good old PolitiFact. I'm sure that even if you don't know who, PolitiFact, fact-checking is their game. PolitiFact is their name, and fact-checking is their game. And, well, they are just at the top of their game, I will say, at this point. Just amazing, really. So as Samantha Putterman informs us from PolitiFact, this is a PolitiFact article from August 7th of 2025. I am recording this August 20th of 2025. I meant to do it last week, didn't happen. Yes, sections of the Constitution were missing on a government website. No, it didn't change U.S. law. Basically just shutting you up and making sure that you believe that whether or not you heard about this, there's no impact on you or your safety or your security or your freedoms. And of course, as expected, there is what you usually get with any web search now, some kind of AI response that comes up first, like, hey, AI got all you needed from here. No need to search through all these different search results. If your time is short, blah, 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 blah. Such a very, very typical TikTokian, Instagramian way to alert you to something and not even give you the chance to read the article if your time is short, of course. If your time is short. Because we know nobody has time to read anymore. Let's be honest now. But there's always time for shorts. There's always time for TikTok and Instagram. There's always time for Facebook and Twitter, whatever, X. Call it what you want. So get to the bottom of the PolitiFact article. They're ruling, because they are sponsored, as I will let you know in a moment, by very impactful companies. Quietly remove a Threads post, right? Because Threads is one of the new places to get your info. A Threads post said, and of course it was everywhere else too, an official U.S. government website quietly removed Section 9 and 10 of Article 1 from the Constitution without input from Congress. The Library of Congress annotated websites of the U.S. Constitution was missing sections of Article 1. This includes 8. They didn't mention that here. The library said the issue was related to a coding error, and it was corrected shortly afterwards. Website alterations do not affect U.S. law or the Constitution. The document can be changed only through a formal amendment process in Congress. We rate this post false. I want you to be very, very clear about how much PolitiFact, who is not your friend, is making sure that you are just forgetting about this. It never happened. Don't worry about it. It's fixed. Also, nothing changed. You red hat fool. Which is, of course, not me describing myself in any slight bit. If anyone watches this show regularly, you know that. Now, who sponsors PolitiFact? I looked through, thankfully, they have a very thorough list, and you can pull up their 1099, whatever. Great. Everything's fakeable. I don't really care about seeing it. Even though it's there, it's not proof of anything, but it is nice that they're being transparent about at least their most important donors. Here's the list. Meta, TikTok, Google News Initiative, Google News Initiative Fundamentals Lab, YouTube, which is Google, of course, Microsoft, Friends of the Earth, who has articles such as Protect the Arctic from Being Destroyed by Trump. And it's not all bad. I looked around on the Friends of the Earth website, and I think that some of their goals seem very good and grounded, but there's a lot of political nonsense going on over there. I didn't see the word climate change. They're very smart about not being, against someone who may watch this show, let's say. But they did ask for cleaner, low-carbon economy. And I'm sure it seems like they're not on the right side of history. But regardless, all of these people are interested in PolitiFact being on their side. You don't give tons of money to somebody without expecting something or knowing that them being around benefits you at the end of the day. Google has fact-checked my videos many times, enough to have some videos be gone, and the shadow banning is very real. Or I'll make a video about the Bermuda Triangle, and it immediately pulls up the official word on Bermuda Triangle or the official word on outer space. So, strangely enough, PolitiFact didn't seem to be such a big deal until 2020, 5 years ago. Again, the word, COVID, whatever. Far more supporters jumped in at 2020. They have a list of every year. And once 2020 hits, the list gets much bigger, and it stays that way until now. So that is a very interesting thing to note. I'm bashing PolitiFact. Good for them. They suck. And fact-checking is one of the nastiest things that's come out of the recent events of our very recent history. Bottom line is this. I asked a question in a previous short. They did notice. Will they even notice they did? And the U.S. government website immediately fixed the error. The next question is, would they have even bothered fixing the error? The coding error? Probably not. And my genuine feeling about the entire thing is that this is a quick little test to catch the people that are checking and put them on whatever list they'd like. But more importantly, to see if the general public even cares. With PolitiFact around, a lot less people are going to care, less than they initially do when they hear something as alarming as this. But it's not alarming, is it? Because no laws were changed, no one was affected. And the television would have shown you nothing. So I think that's another interesting thing to point out here. You have to be on the internet to catch this information. It's not on TV. You catch it when it's too late. It's already fixed by the time it's on TV. And the internet is still good. The internet is still powerful. But when I see certain terms, let me try to make sure I'm saying the right ones here. When I see certain terms like quietly removed without input from Congress, coding error, formal process, I'm wondering how many of these terms and words are just going over people's heads, or if when a lot of people, and this is including myself, by the way, and this is a kind of a call to arms for all internet sleuths. You see certain things and you do have something of a preconceived notion with those letters in that order in that word. Certain words give you certain ideas. Here's a term, witch. Here's another term, flat earth, right? These terms, they put you in a certain spot immediately, whether you feel a certain way about them or not. And it takes time to undo that. Something like cryptocurrency, blockchain. What's the difference? Is there a difference? Do they work together? Do they need each other? Are they separate things? Did one exist before the other? Right? These are questions that need to be thoroughly answered before you have a genuinely correct or at least good opinion, a good solid opinion, a solid argument. A lot of these people jump into the ring with people who do know, and they immediately have nothing to say. So they just get mad, and they pull that whole, you don't even know what you're talking about card. So having said all that, I'm going now to let's go to the source as far as this book says. And let's check it out, right? So Section 8, there's a bit of like borrowing money, commerce regulation. This could have something to do with the tariffs as of late. I don't care so much. Let's not worry about that one so much. Section 9, completely missing. Here's the part that I think might have mattered most, perhaps. The privilege of the writ of habeas corpus shall not be suspended unless when in cases of rebellion or invasion, the public safety may require it. Writ of habeas corpus being, as far as I'm aware, when somebody has you detained, you now get to see court. You get to go to court. You get to have it worked out. You don't just get held and detained for nothing. Or at the very least, you don't get held without the appropriate law people to do their lawful and unlawful things, in my opinion. But that is something interesting, especially with all the whole, like, ice everywhere. And, let's think about Guantanamo Bay in the past. Clearly, this is I've been following the news for 35 years or longer episode versus my usual Third Eye stuff, but I really find this to be very important. And I also think that it's a big step forward for a lot of us to make sure that we are sure when we research and do these kinds of things. Look at the original stuff and make sure that you understand it at a base level. It's how I teach as a bass player, as a bass guitarist, as a bass teacher, as a music theory teacher. If the terms and the ideas are not clear, the simple things, you move on to the advanced stuff, and you're not your best. You're kind of just in the dark, and you're just kind of guessing a lot. Not good. As a teacher, not that I'm, necessarily teaching at this moment, but as a teacher, I like the student to be able to create solutions for themselves through their own knowledge set, if that knowledge set is good and pure. And that's a humongous lack nowadays, especially with the typical, I'll see a video of someone talking about something that, oh yeah, that's good, that's smart, but they're reading, their eyes right, they're reading, and they're just trying to look good. There's cleavage. There's a cool hat. Dude's got a great beard. These people, their heart is not in it. They're taking something, they're regurgitating it perfectly, and they don't have the back and forth that you would get in, let's say, a public setting or even the comment section. Please do leave a comment. And if you're watching on YouTube, may I please remind you, before I read the section 10 thing that I think is important, may I please remind you that YouTube is going to be very much nothing as far as this show is concerned very, very, very soon. Extremely soon. 1 or 2 episodes away from getting rid of YouTube. If you're watching this on YouTube, please find me on Patreon or Substack, or more than likely, when the time I cut off YouTube, I will be putting every single episode I have on my website from now on. And you can become a supporter there to watch the exclusive stuff. And as you can see, I don't have a ton of exclusives because I want to be out there for everyone. I'm documenting my path in this show, and that is what I'm providing. Support is very, very much appreciated, but it's certainly not expected in any way. There'll be plenty of free stuff there. I've made well over 100 episodes, and a lot of them are free. So prepare for that. Section 10, the paragraph that I think seemed to matter the most. No state shall enter into any treaty, alliance, or confederation, grant letters of marque and reprisal, coin money, emit bills of credit, make anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts, pass any bill of attainder, ex post facto law, or law impairing the obligation of contracts, or grant any title of nobility. No state shall enter into. Now, I could probably talk about this for a while, but it's missing suddenly, right? Most important, it seems. Since there's so much talk lately about how the government wants to use crypto, and screw that, right? But Bitcoin's already, and it probably always has been, another level of control, or something that looks nice and shiny. But as I heard someone say very recently, if you're using Bitcoin to try to avoid the scam that is money and debt and, taxes, then you might as well just keep using banks. There's no difference at this point. So, like Chase Bank, JP Morgan, right? All those guys. But anything but gold and silver coin a tender in payment of debts. Do you think, knowing the show, the show that we get that is called The National Debt, do you think that's being paid for with gold and silver? I had mentioned recently in an episode that I live not so far from Fort Knox. I'd like to go over there. Let me know if that's something that interests you. Do maybe kind of a on-site episode, which I've only really done one of very early on. Bottom line is that, again, I asked a question, and not directly, but I did actually get an answer. They did try to change the laws online, or what was available to see. They moved the goalpost, not legally, but if it's not there to see, you'll forget about it, that it ever existed. And then it doesn't matter if it's law at that point. It makes it much easier to fight back and avoid worrying about all these nuisances that get in the way of criminals trying to do what they've got to do. And they're not going to win. So I hope that this was an interesting watch for you. It's a slightly different pace and tempo of my usual episodes, but there it is. And thank goodness. I have a note that says, they noticed, exclamation point, they, the good they. Usually they is really bad. They is pretty awesome right now. And these internet sleuths, they quickly found out, and who knows how, right? People were just casually, I bet there's people that check it every day. Make sure that damn website doesn't change. Because that is just the writing on the wall. It's nothing official, but if it's not there, and someone who has no idea goes to look on the website and trusts the US government website for their information, they're not getting any good information. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed that little rant. It really was kind of a rant, I guess. But PolitiFact bad, internet still good, but you have to use it the right way. And speaking of Ronin, that guy's going to be on the show again real soon. So look forward to that. Definitely catch his show. I'll put a link to his site in the show notes. Thanks, guys. I'll see you next time.